Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, and mentor, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Jim, I'm doing well. As always, I enjoy spending 10 or 15 minutes chatting with you before we record.
Always. It's unavoidable for some reason. Yeah, that's good. It's good to have good friends. Hey, I,
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
I want to get right to our topic today because I've had so many conversations in the last month or so about this issue. And what's funny is I don't think I had any conversations prior to a month ago about this issue. It seems to be something that we are recently catching on to at least I'm catching on to as a local pastor, a real issue. And so why don't you take it away and kind of introduce to us what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. This is episode 213, and it's titled The Leadership Shortage and What We Can Do About It.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
I have some statistics here, Jim, from Lifeway Research and from Barna
Hmm.
about the graying of leadership. The average clergy member is 57 years old today
Wow.
compared to age 50 in 2000.
Yeah.
And that stat is from Lifeway Research. Here's one from Barna. Half of American pastors are older than 55. In
Wow.
1992, less than a quarter of pastors in the United States
Wow.
were that old.
So let me just to digest that second statistic. That means that half of the pastors in America will probably retire in the next decade.
Yes,
Okay. That's
yes.
terrifying. Thanks, John.
It is
Welcome. I'm
terrifying.
glad you joined us today. And if there's anything else we can do for you,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's something. And David Kinnaman, who is, I believe he is the CEO now of Barna,
Yeah, Barna.
he says this: it's urgent that denominations, networks, and independent churches determine how to best motivate, mobilize, resource, and deploy more younger pastors.
Yeah.
And
Yes, it is.
there's so many
Wow.
impacts of this trend, Jim. The talent pool is not as deep as needed, and it's creating a significant challenge for denominations all across the country. It's not one denomination that's having this issue, it's every
Yeah.
denomination
Yeah.
that's experiencing this. So, Jim, a couple of thoughts from you on this, and then let's jump into some things that I think might be helpful in
Yeah.
relationship to this really, um, I guess, serious matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've been talking for a couple of years now on the desire to resign. What percentage of
Yes,
pastors, even though they're younger than this age, they're looking for a finish line, not looking at one, they're looking for one. It isn't time to finish, but they're trying to figure out how to stay in the game. And I wonder if that isn't dissuading a younger generation. Why would I want to grow up to be? I think today, why would anybody want to be a school teacher? Why would anybody want to be a police officer? Why would anybody want to be a politician? Why would anybody want to be a soldier? And the answer is because they're created and called to do those things. Otherwise, nobody would want to. They're the education level, the risk level, the pain level, the sacrifice level, and the dishonoring many times of culture towards those professions, including our own, I think would dissuade. Yeah, I wonder back in the day, there were kids that say, when I grew up, I want to be a pastor. I wonder what the dreams are now. But evidently, somewhere along the line, it stopped being a
yeah,
pastor. And the second thought that I have is I don't think that the other half of pastors are 54. You know what I mean? They're 24, they're 34, they're 44, and they're 54. I
right.
wonder. I wish I had more data that got back into that, because if another large chunk of them are in their late 40s, early 50s, we're looking at a
Right.
75% shift of clergy in the next 15 years. Our
Yes.
fellowship is closed. It's one Bible college. Now, all of our colleges have, theological degrees and pastoral degrees, missiology degrees, but the Bible college, I think that there's a real shift, and with that shift, it's going to need some real adaptation for the church. I don't think the church 20 years from now looks like it does today. It can't. Without leaders, we have to morph, or we have to produce a huge number of leaders that at the
Right.
moment we don't know who they are or why they're not leading. Those
Right.
are those are substantial problems.
And I think I'd like to focus on the second half of that. I
Mhm.
don't believe what we're going to talk about today is the reshaping of church. It's more on the subject of how do we
Yeah,
address this leadership shortage issue. So I
yeah.
have four things in mind, Jim, which go from simple to more complex.
Okay.
So let's start with the simple stuff first.
Yeah,
I don't know that we'll have a ton of discussion around the simple things, but as we get into the more complex areas here, I think our discussion will expand. Here's the first one, and this is something that all of us can do, and that's to pray.
yeah,
Ask the Lord of the harvest to send workers into his field. I mean, that still rings true. It still
yeah.
is true. God cares about this shortage more than we do, I believe. I don't think
Hmm.
he's frantic about it. I don't think he's anxious about it.
Yeah,
But, you know, so that's just simple. Let's get on our knees and ask the Lord to send laborers into the
yeah,
harvest field.
yeah.
So that's the first one. Here's the second one. I think that is happening, and I just wanted to call attention to these. There are some large events where young men and women feel that call, that tug
Yeah.
toward ministry. Um, Camps, I mean, are
Hmm.
historically noted for young men, young women receiving a call to
Yeah,
ministry. Uh, our tribe put on an event a couple of
yeah.
weekends ago called it's called the MNN. It sounds like a MMA almost, right? But we don't mean that. Uh, it was an event for around the whole idea of calling and helping to nurture that
Yeah,
in young people. And I support and you support events like that
yeah,
fully.
sure. Yeah.
We do these large events. But I wonder, I'd like your thought on this, Jim. I think if all we do is take an event-centric approach, I'm not sure we're going to see the amount of gain that we need.
I agree.
What do you think
I
about that?
think the event is part of the solution
Right.
because we're either called or we're not, but it's the event where you profess that calling. Where you admit it, you submit to it, you acknowledge it. It comes out of your mouth. It's not something you're ruminating in your heart. Everyone who feels called to vocational ministry, get up from your chair and walk to this altar. That's a very different thing than thinking about being a teacher. Maybe I'll be a soldier. Maybe I'll be a mommy. Maybe I'll be a you know what I mean. I am
Yeah.
called to be a vocational minister in the kingdom of God. God has given me those gifts, and I'm admitting it. I'm confessing it. I'm professing it. I think that's huge. But beyond that, I mean, how many dreams come to fruition? How many professions become physical? And so between that profession, there has to be people. I understand process, but I I don't want a classroom. I want a father. Does that make sense? I want a mentor. I
Yes.
want a coach. I'd love to play baseball someday, but I need a team. I need a coach. I need someone to correct my swing. I need someone to tell me to throw the ball differently. So if we
Yeah.
are going to be excellent at this, we need a family of people preparing us. And we need a family of brothers and sisters being prepared. And now we have our colleges or our schools or our networks, our districts, right? We that big event is huge, but beyond that, we need so much more.
That's right. And so I'd like that just sets me up for this third
Yeah.
piece that I think will be helpful in addressing this issue, and that's better health.
Yeah. Yes.
Some younger people, and maybe a lot of younger people who are potential leaders, observe the unhealth of older leaders,
Yes.
and see them recoil
Yeah.
from it.
Yep.
And we know the markers, Jim, of unhealth, of workaholism, and the neglect of marriage and family that often
Yeah.
comes along with workaholism.
Yeah.
The isolating nature of the lead pastor role is an especially pesky problem. Barna reported 5 or 6 years ago that lead pastors, 66% of them have no deep friendships.
Wow.
And so, we know
Hmm.
God's wired us all for friendship, regardless
Yeah.
of what we
Yeah.
do for a living.
Yeah.
And so I think younger folks see that. and think, you know what? I don't want to be isolated. I don't
Yeah.
want to be lonely. Um, Obviously, the high rates of anxiety and depression are troublesome for the younger crowd. Some of them have been on staffs and
Yeah.
not and have did well. Um,
Yeah.
and they've had a bad experience, and that's kind
Yeah.
of poisoned the well, so to speak.
Sure.
And and I'm wondering, Jim, if those of us that are in front of the younger generation, if we get healthier and the way we lead gets healthier, I'm wondering if that'll move the needle with younger
Yes.
potential leaders.
It has to, right? Again, why wouldn't, if I were 16 years old and I told a loving parent, I'm thinking about becoming a law enforcement officer, I don't think that necessarily ever would have been excited about that. They might have been proud, but I think more so today they'd be cautious. Like, are you sure? You know what's
Mhm.
you know what's going to cost your family? Do you know you're always going to sit in the back of the room with one eye open when everybody else's eyes are closed because you're going to be trained not to trust humanity? Are you sure? People are going to look at you differently the rest of your life. You're one mistake, one angry moment, one away from prison in a way that no other profession is. Are you sure? You're you're almost someone's going to conclude something false and negative about you because of that choice. Are you sure? And I think the same could be true again with all the other professions we talked about. Be a school teacher. It's like, why? You get a master's degree, go make 3 times the money, work half the hours, and have the applause of your community. Why would you be a school teacher? So there's been a real shift as trust has been broken. Um, respect has become suspect. The things we
Yeah.
once respected, we now suspect. Our leaders, our community. So I just think this is why we have a generation saying, "Can I just be an influencer from behind my camera in the in the utopia of the worlds that I create?" I get that. I want to work at home. Why? Don't have to deal with people. I want to be a rock star. They have no idea what it takes to be a rock star, but I want people to love me. I don't think people are moving towards ministry with that same delusion, and that's what it always was. That you're going to
Yeah.
be respected by everybody and loved, and it's going to be worth it. It's like it's obedience. It's a call. So yeah, yeah, I know I'm talking in circles right now, but those are my thoughts. My thoughts are circular on this because I don't have the answers. I guess. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I understand some of the questions. I'm beginning to,
Yeah.
but the answers, well, we need to make clergy more respected again. It's like, I think there's just too many of us, and the media loves the story where we fall. It
Yeah.
doesn't, how many Catholic
Yeah.
priests love God and how many Catholic priests did something stupid? But what's everybody think of when they say Catholic priest? It's not fair. It's not fair to
Right.
99%. But
That's
but
right.
there it is. We suspect the whole profession now.
I'm really thinking more about this part of it, Jim. The the relationships that younger potential leaders have with older leaders.
Yeah,
So I'm not even talking about the leaders they see from a distance. I'm talking
gotcha.
about the leaders they see up close and personal.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, because I don't know what we can do about the leaders at a distance, and what
Yeah.
happens in the media. I think we have like next to no control over that. I
Yeah.
think we have a lot of control though over the kind of example we set for the people on our teams.
Yeah. We do.
And setting an example of proper priority in terms of
Yeah.
my walk with God, my
Yeah.
marriage, my relationship with my kids and grandkids, how
Yeah.
I treat my staff, um, uh,
Mm.
having good mental and emotional hygiene,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think giving them somebody to look up to in some ways
Yeah.
is
When I
part
grow up, I
of,
want to be like,
yes.
yeah. Yeah.
I think about one of my favorite teachers in college. He was a brilliant theologian, but he loved Jesus so much,
Yeah.
and was a man of wonderful power.
Mm.
He was just he had it.
Yeah.
And I remember as a 19-year-old thinking, I want to be like that guy when I
Right
grow up.
on. Yeah. Right on.
I want to be smart. I want to be intelligent. but I want to love Jesus with my whole heart, and I want there to be demonstration that
Yeah.
he's real in my life. And so
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, that kind
Right.
of, that there's health, that we have somebody that we can look toward and say, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
So so I
Yeah.
think that the health issue is something that I've heard some of our friends talking about, but not too many of them.
Yeah.
Um, this is
Yeah.
kind of one of those that are just not, I don't know if it's thought about very much, but we want to put it out there because we
Yeah.
want our watchers and listeners to start thinking about this third one.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let me give you
Was
one
it?
more, or
Can I
unless
say
you've
one
got a
thing?
question on third.
Well,
Yeah, sure.
I think it was Josh Spurlock, one of our guests, said, "What's it like to sit across the table from you?" Remember that? Remember that conversation?
I
Was that
think so.
Josh that
Yeah,
said
I
that?
do. I
Yeah.
think it was Josh. Yeah.
As a leader, as a friend, as a father, as a spouse, what's it like to sit across the table from you and being emotionally intelligent enough to realize that the answer to that question has a profound impact? I don't think I'd
Yeah.
ever considered it before it was brought up on the podcast. What's it like to be? Am I angry? Is everybody on pins and needles and eggshells? Is it a delight when I say, "Hey, you got a minute to stop at my office"? Do they think they're getting fired? Do they think I'm inviting them out to play golf?
Yeah.
Those are that relationship, that healthy and loving and outgoing is huge. Yeah.
It really is. And as you're talking, there are pictures of people
Hmm.
coming into my mind, Jim.
Hmm.
My first pastor,
Yeah.
amazing teacher, love the Lord, powerful man, but not overbearing man, just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
I looked up to. Um, One of the first people that when I was a young guy, young in the Lord, who was an associate pastor at a different church, not the church I was attending, but he invited me into his life, actually
Mhm.
Laura and I into his
Yeah.
and his wife's life, and I admired this guy so much,
Yeah.
and I think the Lord has put several people in my path along the way
Yeah.
that really gave me
Mm.
the push. And I don't think
Yeah.
they were pushing me, but just being around these people and watching their
Yeah.
life inspired me.
Right.
Uh, and so I want
Right.
us older guys to get healthier
Yeah. Good.
and to be
Good.
inspired. And I think that
Yeah.
will help. It's not the
I
whole
agree.
solution. I just think it's part of the solution.
Yeah. Well, it proves it's possible. It's a
Yes.
counter narrative to the everybody in ministry is lying about something, cheating on someone, bigoted, those sorts of things, right?
Right.
I don't want to be a controversial, I don't want to be a villain. I want to be a hero, and to see some of those fathers and mothers in the
Yeah.
faith succeed and love each other, till death do they part. Man, what a wonderful example. Again, when I grow up, I'm 58 years old. I still say that about people. When I grow up, you
Hmm.
know, my next stage of life, I want to emulate many of the things that you are. That's one of
Right.
our greeters, Bud Code. I tell him that about once a month. Man, when I grow up, he's like, I got news for you, buddy. You're not that much younger than I am. It's like, I know, but you're retired. You're when I grow up.
Yeah.
What's your fourth one, John?
So the fourth one I think is somewhat aligned to the third, but it's separate, and that's
Mm-hmm.
discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, I was having a conversation with a denominational leader a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and client of ours, and he said this to me. He said, many calls to ministry happen during the process of being discipled.
Yeah. It's good.
And that really landed with me.
Yeah.
I remember my call to ministry came toward the end of an 18-month discipling relationship that began immediately after I gave my life to Jesus. I had
Love that.
a wonderful man named
Yeah.
Rick in my
Yeah.
life. And Rick not only poured into me, Rick gave me
Mm.
opportunity
Yeah.
he saw some things in me, and he gave me chances to use that fledgling little seed of a gift.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
he probably gave me opportunities he shouldn't have, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, in a way.
Yeah.
So it was discipling, not just the pouring in, but it was also the opportunity to utilize the gift, so to
Yeah.
speak, that God had given me. And 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 I couldn't get away from that conversation. I kept thinking
Yeah.
about it. And my friend, uh also shared, he says, John, read Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 18. And so I want to read that here, if that's okay, real
Yeah,
quick.
please. Yeah.
It says this: one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them. So the
Hmm.
implication is that there was a larger group
Right. Yeah.
that Jesus had been discipling,
Yeah.
and out of that group came these 12
Wow.
guys.
Wow.
And I thought, how did I miss that? I just missed that
Yeah.
that out of this discipling process, Jesus calls these leaders.
Yeah.
And he I think it was Carl Vaders that said to us one time, Jim, that discipleship answers so many of our problems.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if discipleship is part of the answer to
Yeah.
our leadership shortage problem. What do you think?
Yes. Yes. I have been arguing at every available level for a shift in mindset from those who would grant credentials and so forth, and give opportunities, from being a gatekeeper that's trying to protect like denominational purity, heritage, etc., to become fathers and mothers for the same reason that for 18
Yeah,
months somebody gave you opportunities that you weren't worthy of, and maybe in a different setting would not have been given until you'd finished your
right.
4-year degree or your 6-year degree, or you did it for a classroom of other students and you got a grade on it versus exercising right away. And I feel like sometimes the church in China has tremendous disadvantages that they've turned into advantages. It's highly relational because everybody goes to prison if you don't trust the people in your network. Everybody is taking a risk to be a believer. If you have one page of the Bible and you can teach it, you're a teacher. There's no certifications. There are, but very, very few. And so when the Iron Curtain drops and we go in to say, is there anybody left that loves Jesus? It's 1 out of 10 people in China are now believers. It was shocking to the missiologists who studied that, because they said, we thought when all the Westerners got kicked out and the communists came in, it would be illegal and nothing would happen. And as it turns out, why do they multiply so quickly? Why do the churches in South Korea multiply so quickly?
Hmm.
There's an entrusting that takes place much sooner than we do. They learn
Right.
to walk the day after they're born. Humans, it takes a year to learn how to walk. Deer, if they don't know walking in 6 hours, they're lunch. In 7. So I think in some situations, we I think sometimes I call him naked cat eating guy, the demoniac of the Gadarenes.
Yeah.
He has this amazing experience with Jesus, puts on clothes for the first time in a while, has a meal, he's in his right mind, all the voices are gone. And all the guys get in the boat to take off. He wants to go with them. And Jesus says, no, you have to stay. He sent him out alone. And he said, go tell everybody in the Decapolis what I've done for you. Well, the
Yeah.
Decapolis is the same group of people that told him, to leave. You're freaking us out. All the demons went in the
Right.
pigs and just please leave. Well, if you read, it's a chapter or so later, but it's maybe a week to 3 weeks later. Jesus comes back to the same area and they meet him at the beach and say, we're so glad you're here. And they bring all these demoniacs and sick people. Why? The only person that was there that we have in the biblical record that would have continued the Jesus conversation is naked cat eating guy, who
Yeah.
probably couldn't read, probably couldn't write, didn't have a friend, family had disowned him, and all he had was a testimony. I woke up yesterday with voices in my head that have been screaming from my earliest memories. Jesus came, those voices are gone. I'm now in my right mind. I'm sorry I ate your cat. And goes to the next door and knocks on it. All I know, Jesus. I was blind yesterday. I can see today. That's all I know. Next door. So that I think sometimes today, that poor guy would have been put through weeks, months, years of process before he was allowed to tell that story.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something we have to remember, is that apprenticeship is biblical, discipleship is biblical, father, son, mother, daughter, biblical. I'm not saying the other things aren't worthy, but we train scholars and maybe we need more pastors and evangelists, and we need the scholars and the teacher gift, but not everybody should be a scholar. Some of us should be simple practitioners, of the man who discipled you. Did he have a 6-year degree in theology, or was he just a
I
good
don't
man
know.
that loved
Oh,
Jesus?
oh, you mean no. No, he was
Yeah.
the guy you're gonna love this. He was a guy that was 1 year old in the Lord.
Yeah. I love that. I
he
love
was,
that.
and I didn't know that until about 3 or 4 years ago. I found him. Because I
Yeah.
wanted to thank him for what he
Yeah, I'll
did
bet.
for me. And he was so humble. When I talked to him 3 or 4 years ago, he said,
I
"John,
love it.
it was just God doing that through me."
Right.
And by the way, just so you know, I was only a year old in the Lord when I was doing that. I
Yeah.
was shocked. I thought this guy was,
Yeah.
this sage or whatever,
Yeah.
So I um I know that our audience may think, well, what can I do? I'm not a denominational executive. I'm not, you know, can I say let's not rely on our denominational executive. We love our denominational executive.
Absolutely. They're wonderful.
Let's not
Yeah.
rely on them. I think this is a church by church by church issue.
Yes.
And that all of us need to jump on board and pray, support these
Yeah.
large events, get and stay healthy as leaders, learn how to uh, learn how to lead in a way that is honoring to God and to the people on your team,
Yeah.
and and make disciples. And
Yeah.
again, making disciples is not just information; it's transformation, and it's
Yes. Opportunity. Yeah.
opportunity to get in the fray and start. Because Jim, I remember and I know we gotta be done here, but I remember talking about 3 or 4 kids in our youth group. I'm 17 years old. I've been a Christian
Yeah.
for a little over a year.
Yeah.
And we're talking about uh, problems they're dealing with, and at school, at home, and I'm praying for them. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, hey, maybe God's calling me to help people.
Huh. Yeah.
And it was in that context. So we want to encourage you and challenge you we want to encourage you. First of all, we think that this problem can be solved. I believe it can be,
Yes.
because
Yes.
God's big enough to solve this problem. But we want to also challenge you to not kick the can down the road to some other entity, some other organization, a school, a denominational
Yeah.
office, and say it's their problem. No, it's all of our problems.
Yes.
All of
Right.
us. It's our
Right.
problem, and
Yeah.
we have responsibility. So I know you have a lot on your plate as a leader. You have a lot going on, but I don't want to crush you with this. I just want you to give some thought
Yeah.
to what can I do, Lord, to be a part of the answer here, instead of looking at it and thinking, why can't I get anybody on my team? Why can't I hire a worship pastor?
Yeah.
Why can't we find lead pastors? Let's link arms, take this seriously, and let's do something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Do our part, right? Play our
That's right.
role. It's everybody's responsibility to make disciples. It's not just a
That's right.
network or district leadership. Everybody. And what is a disciple? It's not someone that knows what you know. It's someone that can do what they were created to do,
That's right.
and whatever that is. That is the joy of ministry, right? That's the paycheck. When people get to live the life they were created to live, every pastor goes, man, that was worth it. I can't wait to do it again
Right.
tomorrow. Yeah, right on. Well, thanks, John. These are great thoughts, and so grateful. And I guess I could also add this: that if anybody listening says, I think I know how to do that. I think I know. Actually, we're doing it very well at our church right now. We produced 18 different whatever's. Like, let us know what you're doing, because we're in a
Yes.
position to people. A lot of people asking these questions, not a lot of people with good answers. So if you have good answers, or you have better questions, or something we're not seeing, please email us. Let us know what you see, what your solutions, how you're fixing this at your local level, and we will gladly pass that up and down the food chain to people that need that
We will.
information. Because like you're saying, God's going to solve this problem. He's going
Yep.
to get people the answer, and the first person that gets it, share it with everybody. If you got a cure for this,
Right.
whatever pill it is, it's probably the gospel pill. But if it's whatever pill it is, man, we're all suffering from this disease. So help us.
Yeah. And I would say this, if you're listening and watching and you've got something that's really working for you and you share that with us, we'll ask
Yeah.
your permission, but we'd love to broadcast that out to this
Yeah.
audience.
Yes, we would.
And let's help each other out.
Yeah.
Let's learn from one another. So Jim, thanks for joining
Yeah.
me for this conversation today.
My
I
pleasure.
I, I enjoy talking with you about this
Right
kind of
on.
stuff.
Well, and thank you to those who've watched and listened, because
Yeah.
it's for you that we do these things. We're in this together with you. We are both very involved in the local church, and we love the leaders. We love the servants of
Mhm.
the local church in a way that maybe you can imagine, maybe you can't, but we do. And so if we can help you in any way, please let us know. Convergecoach.com. We'd love to spend a half hour with you. Just, John or myself or one of the team. Just how can we help you? How can we serve you? It's like, oh, you say that, but I would feel bad. Like we wouldn't offer it if we didn't want to offer it.
That's
We don't
right.
have to offer these. We love those half hours. One of my half hours yesterday went an hour and 15 minutes for that reason, because it was just too good to let go. We were just enjoying the conversation. So please let us know how we can serve you, and you just keep pushing. You just keep pulling. You just keep preaching and loving and raising up disciples and turning them loose, because that's what leaders do in the body of Christ. And we believe in you. We're praying for you as you continue to lead from alive.